All right, g'day everyone and welcome back to Beyond the Label. I'm Ruby and with me is the one and only Eric. How's it going, mate?
I'm doing well, Ruby, thanks. Excited to dig into today's topic. We're chatting all about building real, grassroots community support for people with disabilities, right?
That's the one. Community is such a big word, but when you break it down, it's all about how local folks, councils, schools, sports clubs, everyone does or doesn't show up for those who need a bit of extra support. You know, locally, here in Melbourne, we've got these adaptive sports leagues popping up everywhere. Wheelchair footy is massive, and there's even blind cricket. These programs aren't just about sport. They're about giving people that sense of, well, belonging and inclusion, you know?
Absolutely. And it's more than just having ramps at the swimming pool. It's the whole vibe. Does the local cinema have captioned screenings? Are events genuinely accessible rather than just ticking a box? When I first moved to London, I noticed how patchy support could be depending on the neighbourhood. It's inconsistent, which is, I think, why these community-led efforts make such a difference.
Yeah, and let me tell you, when I was at uni, there was this group, completely student-run, who started mapping out every single building for wheelchair access, and actually scored some funding to add automatic doors in high traffic spots. It started out as like a tiny side project, but it just exploded because people realised, hang on, this helps everyone, not just students with disabilities. Suddenly, lecturers, visiting family, even food suppliers, everyone benefited.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how one small initiative can shift the entire campus culture. And that bottom-up approach, really listening to people's needs, is so much more effective than these generic, top-down schemes that sometimes miss the nuance. So, moving things along, how do these grassroots efforts actually get off the ground? I mean, people always say it takes a village, but sometimes the village is asleep at the wheel.
Story of my life. But honestly, one thing I've seen over and over is if you want to mobilise people, you need to get the word out. And not just with one sad Facebook post. The We Are Able campaign that kicked off in the UK, remember that, Eric? Now that was clever. It made disability a community conversation, not just a them problem. Suddenly, everyone from local barbers to council members was sharing and joining in.
Yeah, and once you've got that awareness going, it opens the door to recruiting volunteers and forming actual partnerships. Reminds me of a project I worked on with a local NGO, a buddy system for public events. The idea was simple: pair volunteers with folks who needed extra assistance at community festivals and exhibitions. At first, people thought, oh, I can't possibly make a difference. But once they saw their neighbours stepping up, the enthusiasm snowballed. It was infectious.
Totally. And look, a lot of the time, people just need permission to get involved. Half the battle is making the ask. Like, do you want to help someone navigate an event or just be there to chat? Both are valuable. You don't have to be some professional to show up.
And mobilising local organisations, schools, community centres, sports clubs, adds a multiplier effect. They already have the spaces and people, so it's about connecting the dots and sharing the purpose.
Yeah, and that brings us to the next big hurdle. How do you keep these programs going after the initial fizz wears off? Energy is high when something's new, but burnout's a real risk. Ask any project lead who's pulled an all-nighter making last-minute flyers, right?
Oh, I've been there. Sustaining community projects is all about building structures that can survive that honeymoon period. Peer support groups are a great example. There's the Accessibility Collective. They started as a Facebook group, but now they do regular in-person meetups, skill-sharing sessions, and even host their own volunteer training. What's clever is they constantly adapt, not just repeating what worked the first time, but checking in, listening, and switching things up.
And feedback is everything. If you're only listening to the volunteers, you're missing half the story. It's the people receiving the support, the disabled folks themselves, who know where the gaps really are. Sometimes the help being offered isn't actually what's needed, you know? I remember hearing about a group that was so proud of their all-day workshop, but the timing made it impossible for anyone with fatigue or care duties to attend. Just missed the mark entirely.
Exactly. And it shouldn't be a one-off thing, the feedback. It's got to be baked in. Surveys, town halls, informal chats over tea. Sometimes I think communities shy away from negative feedback, but it's actually a gift. It's how things get better. Ruby, where do you stand? Do you think services should be mostly led by disabled people themselves or more collaborative?
Ideally both. Lived experience should be upfront, but there's space for collaboration too. I think when you have disabled leaders shaping, but everyone contributing, you get programs that are practical, realistic, and with proper reach. Otherwise, you risk creating echo chambers or helpers missing what actually counts.
That really raises the bigger question. How do we make all this sustainable in the long term? And that's where policy comes in. You can have the best grassroots ideas, but if the city council doesn't care, or if transport isn't accessible, you hit a brick wall. Policies need to have disability baked into their DNA, not stuck on at the end.
Exactly. Local policy making shouldn't be exclusive or written on a napkin in some back room. There's a trend now, slowly picking up steam, policymakers opening up planning sessions and actually inviting people with disabilities to sit at the table. Like proper urban planning that considers accessible pathways, tactile signals, public toilets, all from the get-go. And not to mention inclusive public transport. Not perfect yet, but a start.
And it's not about ticking boxes either. Ongoing partnerships with disabled organisations help keep those policies alive and evolving. I love the idea of feedback loops. So not just, here's your new transport plan, good luck, but building in regular check-ins, reviews, even community-led audits. If something doesn't work on the ground, change it. There's room for real improvement if we stop pretending any document is ever finished.
Yep, policies need to flex with the community. If something comes up, a new barrier or a new breakthrough, bring it in, adapt, review. People's needs shift. And honestly, that's the only way we end up with truly inclusive cities and towns. All right, so before we wrap up, let's talk tech. What a game changer, if communities actually use it smartly, that is. Digital tools can be intimidating, but things like accessible apps and online resource hubs open whole new doors for support.
Completely agree. I've seen communities thrive using virtual support groups, especially during the pandemic. WhatsApp chats for accessibility tips, Zoom catch-ups to fight isolation, or apps that help you find step-free routes around town. If you build these tools with input from disabled users, they solve real problems, not hypothetical ones.
For sure. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can partner with local tech startups or even schools. Train your volunteers to use the apps effectively. Set up workshops for families. Make sure everyone knows where to find the resources. Sometimes it's as simple as a well-made info website or an app you can actually use with a screen reader.
Yeah, the best tech-driven projects have that loop. Continuous user feedback, tweaks, updates. It doesn't have to be expensive, just thoughtful. I still think about that navigation app in Manchester, built by a uni team working with local disability groups. Bare bones at first, but after some direct community feedback, it became genuinely useful because real people could shape it.
Absolutely. Little wins like that change everything because it's no longer about theory. It's about what actually helps day to day. Anyway, I think that's about us for today. We've covered a bit of everything. Grassroots action, keeping the fire burning, taking it up to policymakers, and throwing in a bit of tech wizardry.
Yeah, plenty of food for thought, and truly none of this is set and forget. We'll be back soon with more stories and tips. Thanks for joining, Ruby. Always a pleasure.
Right back at you, Eric. And thanks to everyone listening. Don't forget to reach out if your community's doing something cool or you want to see us cover a topic. Until next time, take care.